Executive Board for working with us through these difficult and challenging times to secure this very important and critical milestone of a fund-supported program. Let me also thank our key stakeholders, bondholders, and bilateral creditors for their demonstrated commitment to support Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Governor. Now we'll go with journalist questions. There are a lot to be connected from Accra and around the world. I think we have with us Joseph Apia Dolphin from Asase Radio, who has a question. Joseph, good afternoon. Are you with us?
Good afternoon.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, Ghana has relied on the IMF for support 17 times. And critics say the support from the fund has never been a solution to the country's challenges. I would like to know what you make out of this. And then one, you have promised to focus on reining in inflation and rebuilding Ghana's foreign reserves. How are you going to do that? Lastly, how will this be done, and what will make this support from the IMF different from the previous ones? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we'll start with Stefan first.
Thank you, Joseph, for this question. Look, the first thing I would like to emphasize is that, of course, this program is very much focused on restoring macroeconomic stability, anchoring debt sustainability, and it will also create the foundations for higher and more inclusive growth. So I think that's very important because this will set the stage for a much brighter future for all Ghanaians. But now to your question about the future, I think it's important to emphasize also that this is a program that is very rich in its structural component. It includes many reforms that cover a large range of sectors, and these reforms will make the economy more resilient to shocks in the future. And this is what the government and the IMF are looking for in this program. It's a program that will make the economy more resilient and more likely to withstand shocks in the future.
Minister, you wanted to add?
Yes, I could. Thank you very much for that question. And I think it's one of the major areas of anxiety for all Ghanaians as to what does the 17th time mean and where are we going to go from there. If you realize the program is anchored by a post-COVID program for economic growth, which we developed ourselves. And if you look at the strategies that are in there, the issue of moving our revenue from 13% to revenue to GDP to 18% is an important facet of this, so that we have the resources to do what we have to do. A strong sense of expenditure and commitment controls will also be emphasized going forward. And the growth agenda is really strong. How do we create an enabling environment for investments to propel the private sector? So I think it's that clarity that we have gone to the fund enough, and we should use this opportunity as a reset to move forward.
We have Nilate from CTFM, City TV. Good afternoon. Can you hear us? We can see him. Please go ahead with your question.
Clear. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. What is your question?
Well, we know that Ghana actually came to the IMF largely because of the country's debt overhang.
Okay, we'll come back to you in a few seconds. Can we?
And also, it's excessive borrowing, for which reason we lost our access to the international capital market.
Okay. Did you?
I think
but even
you
before
get
the first tranche hits the account of the Bank of Ghana, there are already hints that Ghana will be returning to the capital market soon. First, I want to find out from the finance minister why the rush to return to the international capital market and also to the IMF. What is the official position of the fund and how concerning is this to the program in entirety?
Thank you. I think we have.
I think we had parts and bits of it, but
and
yes,
also my second question has to
is
do
the concern about borrowing, and also what you believe would be a precipitation of our return to the international capital markets. On the issue of borrowing, I mean, the reason for this program is to bring us
also on the structural reform front. And all of these efforts combined will contribute to macroeconomic stability going forward. On the inflation side, I believe I will flag two key planks of the program that I have already mentioned before. One is the very substantial and ambitious fiscal consolidation program that the Ghanaian government has embarked on. Of course, this will have, it will help reduce pressures on prices and will contribute to controlling and bringing inflation further down. And then, of course, the other aspect that I mentioned is the bold steps that have been taken by the Bank of Ghana in raising interest rates and in eliminating monetary financing of the deficit, both policies that are very, very critical to bring inflation down. And that have already started bearing fruits. On the reserve side, again, many aspects will contribute to increasing the reserves. Of course, the policies that I just talked about will help improve the external position in Ghana. It will help contribute to tame the growth of imports. It will help make the economy more competitive and bring exports higher. All of that will contribute to a more favorable external position, which in itself will lead to higher reserves. And of course, there is the impact of the program on the financing side, financing from the IMF, but also the financing that will help, that will be catalyzed through the IMF program from other partners that will all contribute to bolstering the international reserve position in Ghana.
Minister, would you like to address the City News question too?
No, I suspect maybe Governor, inflation and exchange control will be a great place for Governor to chime in on this one.
Governor, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Minister. I think that Stefan hit the nail on the point. The issue is about resilience, and this is really what I tried to explain in my earlier intervention, that as at the end of 2021, inflation was at 12.6, and within a year it rose to 54.6 because we had a major challenge with access to financing, especially. And as Stefan said, a major part of this program is focused on fiscal consolidation. As you're aware, there are new revenue measures which should enhance revenue flows to the budget and therefore reduce the demand for financing. You've also had the implementation of the debt exchange program. So the foreign exchange outflows that are associated with debt service should reduce. And then the catalytic impact of the IMF flows, which would, also help attract other foreign inflows, both direct and bilateral support. And all of that should help, in a sense, not only bring inflation down, but also help with exchange rate stability.
Thank you, Governor. So now we have a question from Francis Toh from Ghana News Agency. Francis, are you with us? Francis, who is in Accra.
Yeah, I'd muted myself, sorry.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. I guess you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead with your question.
Great. So we've seen the government introducing various revenue measures. Since the economic hardship began, there have been various calls for some expenditure rationalization, with a major call on the government to reduce the size of its current government. I would like to know from the fund, would the reduction of the number of will the reduction in the size of government have any impact on the current program that the government is seeking for? And I also want to find out from the finance minister. Already we've seen some banks recording losses. What exactly is the government going to do to ensure that banks are supported enough to provide funds to businesses, and how much has the stability fund been able to get so far? And the last will be the fund, the 600 million that's coming in tomorrow, as the Bank of Ghana governor stated. What exactly is this fund or this money going to be used for? Thank you.
Thank you. Francis Nto from the Ghana Broadcast News Agency, who would like to address his several questions. He has several ones. Stefan.
I can take a crack at it, and thank you, Francis. I am not sure I understood fully the first question, but I heard you talking about revenue measures and also reducing the size of the government. And so I think what I'll say on that is that indeed the program is quite ambitious in terms of putting the government finances on the sound footing going forward and ensuring sustainability on that front. And there are really two key components to this. One is the one that you were referring to these revenue measures. The program is, again, is ambitious on that front. The government has set for itself the objective of increasing the ratio of revenues that are raised domestically substantially over the next few years. And this is very important, of course, to contribute to the reduction in the size of the deficit. But more generally, going beyond that, it is also an important goal to bring the revenue ratio in Ghana closer to peers in the region, and this will contribute to making public finances much more resilient to shocks going forward. It will also create space for the government to spend more on priority spending, on helping the most vulnerable, and in implementing its vision for economic development and having more expenditure focus on priority spending and infrastructure going forward. On the spending side, the reduction of spending is I would say what is the most important is for the government to be able to provide better services at a lower cost, to make government expenditure more efficient. And this is, again, an objective that the government has set for itself. And there are a number of reforms under the program, particularly on public financial management, enhancing fiscal transparency, all of those aspects that the minister mentioned earlier in the event that are also very important. I will perhaps let the minister and the governor talk about support to banks. And there was a question more specific to the fund, I believe, at the end, but I cannot remember.
We'll go back to it. Minister, would you like to address this question?
Great. Thank you very much, Francis. Very, very good questions. With regards to the banks, yes, we went through the DDEP program, and we have all seen the effect on the banking sector, and therefore the structure of the Ghana Financial Stability Fund, which we intend to fund with up to $1.5 billion, $250 million from the World Bank, and government to contribute $500 million as we still speak to our development partners for them to participate in that. But the exercise, as you know, was really crucial to be able to reduce the level of interest that we are paying to support our debt. So yes, the World Bank should hopefully in the third quarter be able to bring that initial support going forward. As you know, we are running a budget deficit. We are also agreeing for zero financing for that. So to continue to support the programs that is where the $600 million dollars will be deployed. I think going forward, the issue of efficiency of government and efficiency of services to the people are going to be key, and therefore finding ways of ensuring that we're efficient in our deployment that we have. So that's going to be key. I think for all of us in Ghana to really internalize that there's a new era with regards to our own behavior, re-engineering, and the type of imports that we have, moving towards food security, so the importation of rice and poultry and tomatoes, etc., are brought down, and we produce those ourselves. That really will signal a new way forward that will increase the resilience and sustainability of the program.
Thank you, Minister. I think the question on the fund, Stefan, we will follow up with Francis bilaterally. We had a question from Edward Nyako from Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. May I know if the IMF program will lead to a cut in social programs such as LEAP, capitation grant, and the fee SHS? Minister, would you like to address this question?
Thank you very much, Edward. And you heard Stefan on this issue, the issue of ensuring that we protect the vulnerable is very clear in the program. So I think we have increased the resource envelope for the school feeding program. We are doubling, I think, the LEAP program to ensure that the welfare support continues. So no, we should not worry about that. And you have always heard the President being very clear about ensuring the protection of lives and livelihood, and that spirit will continue.
Stefan, would you like to complete?
Well, no, I'll just add that, as the Minister said, ensuring adequate social protection is a key objective of the program. The budget, 2023 budget, has already taken important steps in this regard to not only to protect, but I would say to bolster support to the vulnerable through the most effective and the most targeted programs. But I'd say also, and I would encourage everyone to go and look at the staff report that has been published yesterday. It includes a lot of analysis and descriptions of how the program will go about monitoring these aspects and ensuring that in the face of what could be difficult policies to implement on the fiscal consolidation front, these are implemented in a way that is the least disruptive as possible, and by not only protecting but increasing the coverage of the effective social programs.
We have another question from Bloomberg News. Moses Mozart Zuadzu, are you with us, Moses? I don't know if he's connected. Moses, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. My first question, the IMF has said the central bank has to do more in terms of increasing rates. We'd just like to know how would that be implemented, considering that the rates are already high? That's our first question. Our second question is, what sort of debt relief do we expect from the bilateral creditors? Is it going to be resettling of debt, debt forgiveness, principal haircut, and or interest haircut? And directly linked to that, what about the commercial creditors? What sort of debt relief are we working to get in from this group of investors? Thank you.
Governor, I would like to know if you were able to hear Moses very well, because I think this question was mostly for Central Bank.
Yes, Tatiana, I heard him very well. I think he misunderstood what the IMF said. I think the IMF statement was that we have to keep a tight monetary policy stance until we are sure that inflation is firmly on a downward path. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we would have to be increasing our policy rate. But then on the issue of the impact of the debt exchange on the banks, I'd wanted to say a few things. First, to say that banks are very liquid. We don't see that the banks are having any difficulty with liquidity. And in any case, the Bank of Ghana stands ready to provide liquidity for any banks that may have future liquidity issues. And also to add that the main impact of the debt exchange was to reduce the capital buffers of the banks. So what we have done is to give them some regulatory forbearance. We reduce the capital conservation buffer of 3%, and that reduces the capital adequacy ratio from 13 to 10%. And we've given them a period of 3 years to rebuild their capital buffers. So we think that the banks will be fine. Shareholders will systematically rebuild these capital buffers. And the government as a shareholder would also find resources to rebuild capital buffers of the state-owned banks. Thanks.
Thank you. Kemi Osokuya, you have a question for us from Africa Bazaar magazine. Are you connected? Good afternoon or good morning. I guess you are in the US. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Finance Minister and Mr. Governor. Thank you for taking my question. I wanted to find out that, given what is going on, the US dollar is not known as the global currency. And I was wondering if you have any concern regarding the inflation in the US and also the Federal Reserve recent interest rate rise, how that will impact your new agenda to strengthen buffer and also attract foreign investment to Ghana.
Kemi, I'm really sorry. We can't hear you very well. I guess we will have to take your question in a few minutes. Before going back to your question, we'll go with Joy FM, George Wafie. George, are you with us? George? You're muted, I think, George. Can you...
Yes. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Now we can hear you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Tatiana, some quick questions here. Some people are worried about the time taken to approve Ghana's program and the fear and the concern that the process was rushed. Could it expose the program to any shocks going forward? And that's the clarity I want to get as well. And also to the mission chief. In terms of the conditionalities, if Ghana should breach meeting of any of the critical benchmarks, would that affect fresh disbursement to the country as well? In terms of even if it's one of them, would that impact on getting additional funding from the IMF? And also the final one to the minister as well. In terms of discussions, the World Bank is coming on board with some support. What about the other donor partners as well? What is their commitment to this program in terms of the financing assurance?
Thank you, George. Minister or Stefan? Minister, I see that you're looking at Stefan, so...
No, I could. I mean, George, thank you very much. And really, I think Kemi's issue was more of an issue of contagion effect. As U.S. rates go up, how does it trickle into our economy? That generally, affects all of us once rates go up. The weaknesses in the banking system also affects credit to Africa, to Ghana, etc. So those are all things that then becomes a responsibility of Ghana or other African countries to reduce imports and become more sustainable in the way in which we we stop importing some $70 billion worth of food onto the continent. If we change that equation, we'll be able to shield ourselves better. George, 3 questions on the issue of being apprehensive about how countries such as Zambia, Chad, and Ethiopia have not been able to go through bringing much distress to the economies, and the way in which Ghana has been able to work assiduously with the fund and the partners to have this landmark decision yesterday really should be considered an achievement instead of, saying that it has been rushed. The program, as Stefan said, is rich and solid, and I really would encourage you to read the documents for you to know that. I think when we are able to do good work, we should be courageous enough to enjoy and savor the achievement and not turn it into a negative. And with regards to the benchmarks are clear. It is up to us in the same vein in which we were able to achieve the agreement yesterday and approval yesterday, and that we also work hard to make sure that the benchmarks are met as we go forward. On the issue of the Financial Stability Fund, yes, the World Bank has committed. We are still in negotiations with other development partners to see their role in that. And we are confident that the manner in which we all have managed the process so far will also make some major breakthroughs going forward. So thank you.
Stefan.
George, on your 3, good afternoon, first of all, but on your 3 points, I will also respond to you in a very, very positive and very optimistic manner. I think today is, we have a lot of reason to be happy and to celebrate with the program approval. I will just remind you that it took a few months to achieve an agreement and to reach the staff level agreement. This was already very, very good news, but I think today having the program approval in just a few months after the staff level agreement, this is also something that is extremely positive. Positive for Ghana, but I believe positive for the countries that may have to come and seek debt relief under the common framework going forward. On your question about the structural benchmarks, today I am extremely positive. What I see is a very strong commitment from the authorities, and I have no reason to believe that the program will not be fully implemented going forward. And we are here and standing by the authorities to help them do so. And then finally, I believe the program approval is also an extremely good news with respect to your 3rd question, which is about World Bank and other partners' support. I think it sends a very strong signal to the international community and other international organizations that the program is in place, that the authorities are committed, and it can only help catalyze additional financing for Ghana.
We have 2 last questions, one from Nabil Ahmed from CGTN and another one from Benjamin Taiwa, class 91.3 FM in Ghana. Nabil Ahmed, please, can you share your questions? Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much. So I just have 2 brief questions, and it has to do with the fact that Ghana managed to get financial assurances from the bilateral creditors group that's co-chaired by China and France. Now,
Nabil?
With external debts. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yes, I just want to find out whether it is clear what the debt restructuring agreement with external creditors look like at the moment. And has there been any progress on negotiations with Eurobond holders to restructure the debt owed to private investors? Thank you.
Thank you. And the other question is from Benjamin Tawia from class 91.3 FM in Accra. Are you with us, Benjamin? I think you're muted. Class FM. Okay, we'll start with Nabil Ahmed question, gentlemen, if you want.
Nabil, thank you very much indeed. I think last Friday was actually quite a seminal moment for the whole common framework G20 expedition, we would say, because it has been really difficult for a lot of countries. The co-chair by France and China and the discussions that went on for the assurances to be given on Friday were timely, well thought out, and also it's an indication of how we may be able to work with the common framework more effectively for other countries that are coming up. With regards to the external creditors and the Eurobond investors, as I mentioned earlier, we've started those discussions, and given the signaling that has come from the fund, that would sort of influence the environment and the discourse. But there's a lot of optimism about exactly where Ghana is going, and that if any country can do it, Ghana can do it. I understand that even at the board meeting yesterday, there was actually a spontaneous clapping when it was approved. So that is how strong people are feeling about our country, and that's because we have done it before. As you know, before COVID, we were at about 7% growth. Inflation was down to single digits, etc. And I think we're on a good trajectory until the incidents that have been quite cataclysmic for the whole world. So there's excitement going forward. We are confident that we will fulfill the structural targets that we have set. And we really are calling on all Ghanaians to join in this effort to make it happen.
We are almost at the end of this press conference, but I would like to try to go to Accra again with class 91.3 FM. Are you, Benjamin, are you online with us, please? Benjamin, can you hear us? Yes, they are. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Benjamin. Can you hear us? It looks like it's complicated for Class FM to connect. I would like to, before we close this special press conference, I would like to give you a...
Can you hear me?
Benjamin, we can hear you. It's a little bit...
Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
Good. My question is directed to Stephanie and IMF. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. My question is directed to Stephanie and IMF. And the first, I want to find out, considering Ghana's history of overborrowing and government's reckless expenditure, coupled with a lot of figures that the IMF will mention, that the IMF will contradict figures, how confident is the IMF in Ghana's ability to improve the necessary reforms to address the root cause of its debt crisis and to achieve a long-term economic stability? With what specific conditions and measures has the IMF set forth as part of the bailout package, and how would that impact on Ghana's economy, particularly in terms of social welfare and government spending? That is my first question. My second question has to do with what mechanisms or safeguards are in place to prevent the reoccurrence of the unsustainable debt levels in the near future, given the volatility of global market and the potential for external shocks. What contingency plans or support will the IMF provide to Ghana to help mitigate risk and ensure the sustainability of its economic recovery efforts?
Thank you very much, Benjamin. Stephanie will address these last questions.
Benjamin, thank you for your questions. I will tackle all of them at once because they are very much related in a way. I think you're asking what makes us at the IMF confident, or what makes us confident at the current juncture is the strength of the program that the government and the authorities in general have put together, and that the IMF is going to support. And the strength of the program is true on two fronts. First, on the policies that will be implemented in the program. I talked about the revenue side, the expenditure side before. These policies are very sound policies, and we have mechanisms to monitor the implementation of the program going forward, and that makes us all quite confident about how policies are going to be conducted over the next few years. But I would say also, and repeat again, that the program is very rich on the structural side. And what that means is that the government is very committed to implement reforms that will help improve policy frameworks going forward, making sure that these improvements that we are going to see and that we are seeing already today are embedded in frameworks that are lasting and that will continue to last well past the end of this program. So on both counts, very confident and optimistic.
Thank you very much. It's already the end of this press conference. I know that you were a lot to be connected and to have many questions. Just a reminder that the presser will be rebroadcasted in its entirety on the imf.org, and we will alert all the media as soon as ready. I would like to thank Minister Ofori-Atta, Governor Addison, who was remotely in Accra, and you, Stéphane Rodet, the mission chief, for being with us. I'm pretty sure that the next mission will be a success too in June. Stéphane, is that right?
Yes, of course. Very optimistic.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Governor, for being with us. And thank you, all the media, for being connected today.
you.